Hello viewers, I'm back again. Today I'm going to discuss the incompetent municipal governance which runs the city of Greenwood, the smallest city in Canada, and the role and a sheer abuse of power by Wendy Higashi, who's the current Chief Administrative Officer, though she doesn't have any qualifications to act as one, and how she and her unlawful acts destroyed businesses in British Columbia, Canada, and hurt a lot of Canadians. Like we discussed in the first video on this segment, that on October 18, 2018, Mr. Goswami filed a petition in the Supreme Court of British Columbia in the Victoria Registry, seeking some reliefs from the court to intervene and request the Director, PST, and Minister of Finance to provide some answers for the questions that he was being given a runaround for. Like I had explained in my first video, after October 19th, Friday, after Mr. Goswami served the petition, Saturday, Sunday, nothing happened. And as the rules of the court in the Supreme Court of British Columbia, the defendants get 21 days from service of the filed documents to file their response. So considering the timelines, the response from the Minister of Finance or Director of Finance dealing with the PST matters, the response would have been due by November 20th. Did that happen? Absolutely not. So we learned the biggest bluff pulled by Wendy Higashi and Michelle Lee of Director PST. October 23rd, we learned in the first video I shared with you that Wendy Higashi canceled business licenses, claiming they're canceled by the provincial order from the Ministry of Finance, which we found out after 7 months that wasn't true. And similarly, the October 22nd letter that was sent with the October 23rd letter by Wendy Higashi, where the Director PST claimed that the reactivation of the PST was denied of multiple companies without any application whatsoever. I also shared with you how Wendy Higashi on October 23rd put the closure notices on all the businesses, saying that these are cancelled by the provincial order of the Minister of Finance, which clearly wasn't the fact, but we only found out 7 months later. When all the events were happening, the owner was absolutely kept in blind with no explanation whatsoever. Now, like any owner, Mr. Goswami wrote a letter on the same day after receiving the closure notices to Wendy Higashi and the council members and the mayor of City of Greenwood, who doesn't exist anymore, requesting to provide the explanation, or at least a copy of the provincial order, to understand what was happening. Mr. Goswami also learned that there was an RCMP officer who accompanied the officer who was insisting and posted all the closure notices on the businesses, because that was something very unique. And after discussing with some members in City of Greenwood, he learned that this has never ever happened in the history of Greenwood, because there were barely any businesses to begin with, let alone closing down businesses with absolute no explanation. So when he wrote on October 23rd to Wendy Higashi and the council members, the email came back. Mr. Goswami didn't understand what that meant, because there was no acknowledgement, no response. And after he sent the documents by hand to the City Hall, they were taken in and thrown in the dustbin, saying this is where they belong. What do you think any business owner would do? Writing to the City Hall, documents go in the dustbin, businesses are shut down with no explanation, So Mr. Goswami writes to the director of PST. On October 29th, he writes a letter to Michelle Lee, 164 pages with all the supporting documents, saying, could you please explain why my businesses are shut down and closure notices have been put on businesses with no explanation whatsoever? I need to know. Was he given an answer? Absolutely not, because he wasn't allowed to have a fair and a due process, because everything done in this matter was breaking every rule in the book one can think of. Now we know after Mr. Goswami wrote October 29th, there wasn't any response given by Michelle Lee either, Director of Provincial Sales Tax, and Minister of Finance went silent for 6 months. In the first video I shared with you that no acknowledgement of any of the letters written to the minister didn't arrive till April 23rd, which was almost 6 months later. And it's only after 7 months of sending these constant reminders, Mr. Goswami was informed that, by the way, there is no provincial order of Minister of Finance because there is no such provision to begin with. So now go back to the City of Greenwood and find out why your businesses were cancelled to begin with. Now, City of Greenwood is not providing any answers, so the letter or the provisions say that you appeal to the minister. So on 29th of October, along with the letter, Mr. Goswami wrote an appeal to the minister in a prescribed form as directed on the minister's website. He filed the appeal to the minister on behalf of his business, Greenwood Motel, saying, I have a letter from Michelle Lee, which I have no idea what that states, and it came to him through another letter of a local municipal corporation, which he doesn't understand. So can you please explain? I'm appealing. I need some response. He filed a similar appeal on behalf of his other company, Pacific Hotel Ltd, mentioning the same thing, saying I have some vague letter written by Michelle Lee, your director. Can you please explain, as in the form of appeal, in the form that you have prescribed, what is happening? He also appealed on behalf of his other company, Windsor Hotel Ltd, because the letter indicated that the PST number for this company was also cancelled. Now, on the 22nd October letter of Michelle Lee mentioned 2 of his other companies with the tobacco license and the PST license, including Greenwood Superstore, so he filed the appeal for that company. As the name of the business, Highway 3 Pit Stop Greenwood, was also mentioned in the October 22nd letter, Mr. Goswami also filed the registration cancellation for the tobacco license and the PST registration as an appeal to the minister, because that was the only option he had, since no one was giving the answers he was looking for. Now, since Wendy Higashi wasn't replying to the letters Mr. Goswami had written, and they were all going on deaf ears, City of Greenwood, like any other city in Canada, runs on certain bylaws. These are the smaller laws which allow the cities to function, to govern their administrative process. So City of Greenwood has a business license bylaw number 924 of 2018, and section 13.1 very clearly indicates the options businesses have to follow in case they want to appeal. So on October 31st, within the 10 business days of the decision, which was 23rd, so well within time, Mr. Goswami filed a formal appeal to the City of Greenwood. And addressing to the council members, he said, as per section 13.1 of the business bylaw of 924, which includes appeal process for refusals, suspensions, or cancellations. Could you please provide me the explanation, a written explanation that why my businesses have been shut down and why am I not allowed to have the documents which dictate that my businesses should be shut down, and why closure notices are put on my business, and why none of you are giving me an explanation that I deserve. Surprisingly, after he sent the appeal to City of Greenwood, Wendy Higashi came back and said, I'm not interested in your case against the Heritage Credit Union, but thank you for making this public information. Do not send me massive amounts of paperwork to the City of Greenwood. That includes emails. It will be returned. So that's a very unique position for any government entity or municipal entity to take. A, you shut down somebody's business, you don't give any explanation. When somebody writes to them for seeking an explanation, you don't reply. When they appeal, they say, don't send us any documents. They will be returned. Tell me in which country in the world any government entity, any administrative office functions the way City of Greenwood and Wendy Higashi works. Now, any reasonable, prudent businessman would do is, while filing the appeals, you also keep the City of Greenwood informed about the actions and the processes that you're taking. So when Mr. Goswami copied the tax appeal documents that were sent to Michelle Lee, Wendy Higashi surprises us again. She says, you have been blocked from sending emails, phone and fax due to harassments. So a businessman whose businesses are shut down based on some provincial order that has not been provided, no answers given, it says that now you're harassing us. So don't ask us any documents because they will be returned. That's a very, very unique way I have ever seen any city in any part of the world function. So October gone, nothing happened. November gone, nothing happened. December gone, nothing happened. And the business licenses by itself would have expired. So having not received any response, Mr. Goswami filed another reminder letter saying this can't be happening to us in Canada. He addressed a letter to council members, 170 pages long, with detailed references in case, City of Greenwood can claim that, oh, they didn't get any documents, hand-delivered with copies of all the relevant documents to the effect, seeking an explanation, saying, how long do you think any reasonable businessman should suffer the financial losses? Some other things were happening in the background that I will discuss in detail in the second part of this video in the next session. With the January 20th letter, he also sent the renewal applications for his business's licenses because every year, January 1st, the business licenses should have been sent for renewal. Usually, City of Greenwood sends you automatic invoices for sending the licenses. During the follow-up with the staff at the City of Greenwood, they were saying that the renewals will come automatically before the 15th of January. When they didn't come by the 15th of January, on 20th of January, Mr. Goswami filed an application for a business license because he was asked to. He said, you have to reapply for a business license. So forget about your appeal, forget about our closing your businesses, forget whatever else we have done in the interim, now reapply again, which is what he did. Did he get any response for that? Absolutely not. So after the January 20th applications for the new business licenses were filed with City of Greenwood, were the licenses issued? For sure not. Why? Because they were not supposed to. At that time, there was no knowing that there was no provincial order. There was nothing, and the closure notices were put as a bluff. Was Wendy Higashi sitting quietly in the meantime, or was she too busy to reply to the correspondence for the owner and throwing them in the dustbin? Surely she wasn't doing that. She was doing everything else than what she's paid to do. One of the examples that the owner found out after he received this email from a department called Interior Health. Now, for the audience, Interior Health is another department which issues food licenses for the bars and the restaurants who serve food to public. They need to maintain another license called a food premises license, which allows, restaurants to maintain certain safety and cleanliness guidelines to make sure that the food served to public meet the safety standards that are required. Now those licenses were up for renewal end of March. So when the owner applied for the renewal, he received this email saying, "We were advised last December by City of Greenwood that these businesses were no longer operating. I did not see these premises operating. We therefore canceled the operating permits for these premises." I have a question for Cynthia, or the Interior Health for that matter. That is there a rule in Canada that all these departments cancel the licenses as and when they feel like, and they actually don't bother to write to the owner? Upon asking Cynthia that why was she not informing the owner or taking third-party unauthorized information as a valid information, do you think the owner got an answer? No. The answer given was, "We've already canceled the operating permits and there's nothing you can do about it. Deal with it." So in summary, Wendy Higashi canceled business licenses of the owner in October 2018 on false grounds of the so-called provincial order of Minister of Finance that didn't even exist. It took him 7.5 months to find out from the executive director, Michelle Lee, that there is no such thing, and she sent that letter by mistake. Both the departments collectively refused to acknowledge or send any appeal, confirmations, or council decisions on any of the appeals till date. No response of any kind, and when the owners is asking for an explanation, he's informed by Wendy Higashi that this is harassment. By the way, in the City of Greenwood, sending fax to that city office is considered illegal. She will actually send you a bill of $100 to $200 based on what she thinks per page if you make a mistake. The only correspondence the City of Greenwood accepts today is if you physically go to the City of Greenwood and hands off the paper, which he clearly throws in the garbage to begin with. Do you think this was something unusual? I'm sure everybody thinks that. The so-called not interested in your litigation with Heritage Credit Union was another bigger bluff Wendy Higashi pulled off, breaking many more laws, which will be coming up next in another 3 sets of videos, because her actions are so colorful I could write thesis on that. Thank you for your time.